Hello, Namaskar and a very good afternoon to all the viewers watching our session out there. This is Simran Singh and you are watching this particular session on PMeVIDYA channel number 11. Viewers, throughout our live interactive session, you all know the different mediums through which you can connect with us. And one of them is our YouTube channel, that is ncertofficial. So it's around 2 p.m. on your watch and it's Saturday. So you know that on Saturdays we have our sessions, 2 consecutive sessions for all our viewers right from 2 p.m. till 4 p.m. So for another 1 hour we are going to discuss about geography for class 11th students, and the topic that we are going to elaborate on is chapter number 3, interior of the earth. Well, viewers from any other classes, if you have joined with us, you have any queries, then feel free to write down to us in the comment section of NCRT Official. So providing us more guidance in this session and discussing at length about the interior of the earth, we are also joined by an expert in the session. So allow me to introduce you with our resource person present with us in the studio. He is Mr. Pushpendra Singh. Namaskar sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon ma'am.
We welcome you with open arms in the session.
Thank you so much ma'am. Thank you so much for inviting me and it's a pleasure.
Thanks for being here. Sir is PGT Geography, currently serving at Prudence School, Ashok Vihar, Delhi. So in this live interactive session, you all know the different mediums through which you all can come up with your queries, your messages and the feedback. Besides, here is a contact number that is flashing on your screens. So don't forget to give us a call at 8800440559, and specifically for class 11 students, there is a mail ID flashing on your screens. You can also reach out to us at dth.class11@ciet.nic.in. So sir, let's begin our conversation regarding the chapter number 3, interior of the earth. So in the first place, I will request you to apprise our viewers about what are the broader areas that you are going to highlight for them today in this session.
Definitely ma'am. Thank you so much and good afternoon everyone. This chapter basically deals with what is the interior design of the earth, how when earth was formed, what were the different layers or different things which were formed, what are the sources of information which we have to know about the interior of the earth. So these things and another, if the time allows, then we will be also discussing about the earthquakes and different types of waves and shadow zones, so which we will see throughout this session.
So we have often heard about how earth is an interplay of some forces. So how many number of forces are engaged in that, and could we know more about it? Yeah,
definitely ma'am. So as we know that earth is an interplay of different forces, if we see that these different forces, so nature of the earth, if we see exogenic and endogenic, there are 2 types of forces which are working on the earth's surface simultaneously. So that means if we say that earth is means interplay and there are several forces, so in these 2 forces are one of the most important forces which we have to see. So endogenic forces, if I say endogenic forces, such forces which are from the interior of the earth. For example, if I say volcano or the plate tectonic, so all these are interior forces or endogenic forces. When we talk about the exogenic forces which are found on the surface of the earth, and when we talk about the surface of the earth, that means, for example, we say wind. So wind affect, when it blows, it just carries the sediments and deposits somewhere else. So in this way, running water, these form the exogenic forces. Now, if we see, these forces have led to the development of different forms, landforms on earth, and these forces can further be changed into endogenic and endogenic. Further, these can be differentiated, or we can say classify them. For example, sudden forces and catastrophic forces, endogenic forces. In sudden forces like earthquake, volcano or landslides, they occur suddenly, that's why we call them sudden forces. Whereas catastrophic forces, that means the mountain building forces, these mountains which were formed, for example, if we say Himalayas which have been formed, these have been formed by catastrophic forces. Whereas exogenic forces like erosional and depositional feature, I just told you that like river, wind, sea waves, glaciers, they form the exogenic forces. So these have led to the formation of the present earth the way we see, and it is because of this only.
So broadly we have discussed about the two types of forces, namely exogenic and endogenic. But when we are talking about this concept that talks about the interior of the earth, so I have this curiosity to know, like, how do we come to know about the interior of the earth? Is there a lot of research involved in it? A lot of people engage in this kind of work?
Definitely, ma'am, definitely. What happens when we talk about the interior of the earth? How do we come to know about the interior of the, what are the different factors or different sources through which we come to know? So remember, the earth's, if we talk about the diameter, it is more than 6,370 kilometer deep till the core. So what happens? We cannot directly reach there. There are direct and indirect sources which are involved. If I say direct and indirect sources, so sources of information no one can reach, as we know that, as I have said, we cannot reach till the interior of the earth, and it is 6,370 kilometer deep. So how can we just know about the earth when we have barely reached to only 12 kilometers? That is the deepest place where we have reached till now. So what happens? These sources can be definitely, there are few inferences, few examples, or few what we say scientific facts or proof through which we come to know about the interior of the earth. If we say, so these can be direct and indirect sources. If we talk about the direct sources where we have seen these, for example, we go to some place and we just see the different types of rocks are found. So when we study those rocks, that is a direct information about that. So these surface rocks are, and from the mining sites when we go in the mines, and if we talk about the mining, we need to know that we have been able to reach only till say 3 or 4 kilometer deep, and it is in South Africa, where there is a mine which is known as Penong. So that is the deepest mine, which is hardly 4 kilometer deep. Whereas there are deep sea ocean drilling projects which are going on, and we have just carried out, and these projects have reached till 12 kilometer depth. So these are different sources which we talk, through which we come to know directly what is happening inside the interior of the earth. But one of the major sources when we say how we come to know till the deep interior. So for example, say volcanoes are one of those basic sources which help us to understand about this. Volcanoes, they bring the magma from inside the interior of the earth, and this magma sometimes may come as deep as 200 kilometer deep, where we have not reached. So it comes from the mantle, and because of which we are able to understand the interior of the earth by just taking inferences from these clues. So that means we have not been able to reach to the interior. For example, you must have seen a movie called Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Yeah.
That was also one of the wonderful movie which depicts how we can go. But that is a hypothetical movie which does not tell the exact picture. It says that there is a deep inside another world, but there is no such world as we know. There is, inside deep as we go, the temperature and pressure increases, because of which it is almost impossible to survive there. So that's why we know that, but that gives a glimpse how these things have been formed. And from volcanoes, how can we come to know inside the interior of the earth? So this is about the direct sources. As I said, Penong, the gold mine located in Johannesburg. So it is the deepest place which we have dig, or we have made a mine through directly. Whereas when we talk about the deep ocean drilling project, so deep ocean drilling project is, one is in Atlantic Ocean, the other is integrated ocean project, which is going on in Atlantic, Pacific and Indian Ocean. So all these areas till 12 kilometer, let me tell you, that is, one is the Kola Peninsula is in Kola, Russian Arctic area, where we have reached till 12 kilometer depth. That is all. That means if we say that 6,370 kilometer we are talking about, and out of that only 12 kilometer, that means not even a tip of iceberg we have come to know about the interior of the earth. And what happens? We need to understand that whatever we are able to understand, it is from indirect sources only through which we have come to know. So till now we have talked about the direct sources like volcanic eruption, I said. So now indirect sources, when we talk about the indirect sources, we need to understand that there are different methods to know about the indirect sources. For example, meteors. We know, we have learnt about the meteors coming from the space, and when they come and hit Earth, so what happens? Sometimes, normally these meteors are so small in size, when they reach inside the atmosphere of the Earth, they just burn and only what we can say, ash is left. But there are few meteors which are large enough to come down on the Earth, and when we find such type of meteors, we study, because we need to understand that we come to know about these sources, or meteor is one thing which was formed along with the Earth and the solar system. So it is indirectly telling us what is its composition. Maybe it is not a direct source from the interior, but it will tell us what has happened in the previous time, say millions of years ago, how it was formed, or say billions of years ago. So that is one way through which meteors we can come to know about it. So this is a meteor. You can see the material and the structure similar to Earth. They are called solid bodies. So material of meteor is similar to Earth, but not from the interior, as I already informed about this. Now, gravity. So gravity is another important thing, gravitation pull, which acts maximum on the poles and minimum on the equator. Equatorial bulk. If we see, Earth is not circular, its shape is geoid, and when we say it is geoid, that means it is bulging on the equator, and when it is bulging, those bulging sides are far away from the core in comparison to poles, and that's why poles have more gravity in comparison to equators, and that's why this tells us about the gravitational anomaly. Now this is one concept which we need to understand. What happens? Normally we expect that if we have calculated that we are reaching to 1 kilometer depth, and there is a certain rate of decrease of or increase of temperature, pressure and volume, so what will be the gravitational pull at that level? But what happens? Suddenly we reach at one place and it does not have, as per our prediction, the gravitational pull. So this is called gravitational anomaly, and it is very common. We have seen everywhere such type of gravitational anomalies, which is expected value does not read as the same which is found there. Such anomalies are found in different places, like Mohovrovic discontinuity is there. So these discontinuities are in the gravitational forces which happens because we do not find the same thing or same material which is there. Then another force which we talk about, so this we have done.
So, sir, as you have mentioned about certain indirect sources, and you also mentioned that it's not too deep that we have reached inside the Earth. So, I want to ask, is it a kind of estimation that our scientists are making and the researchers are doing?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely right. When you say that it is an estimation only, because we have not reached. We have certain values, we have devised certain ways, we have certain equipments, and through them we are able to understand these things. One of them is, one of the most important thing is earthquake waves. So these earthquake waves lead us or tell us about how these waves travel in different mediums. As we know, students, we have integrated, and now integration of the subject, when we say, you must have read in physics a concept of waves. So what happens in these waves which are created? So these waves lead to the, we know that primary waves, secondary waves and L waves are there. So these waves, how they travel, what is the medium through which they travel. So through them we come to know what is inside the interior of the Earth.
And also, I don't think that it would be possible for a human body to go inside crust, core, mantle.
Absolutely, absolutely. You are absolutely fine when we say that we need to go deep inside. Let me tell you, even if in ocean, we have these pandubis, so they are not able to go beyond 300 meter or say 5. You must have seen the movie Gaji attack. So in that it was only able to go till 300 meter. Now we have developed one submarine which can go till 600, 500 meters, but not beyond that. Though we are trying to reach deep inside, like Mariana Trench is there, so to go there to understand how deep it is and how we can just understand this.
All right, so let's move forward with the academic part that talks about earthquakes. What are they? We have read about that, but in geographical terms for class 11, I think the meanings would differ in terms of the words that they carry with them. So
absolutely, this is absolutely, you have raised a fine question, and this question absolutely deals with, for geography students, in a common layman's language, we can say the shaking of the earth.
Bhukamp.
Bhukamp aa gaya. But when we say this, we need to understand that why this happens.
Yeah.
As a geography student, this is our core concern. Our core concern is not earthquake came. The core concern is why earthquake came. That is the most important matter, which as a student, absolutely, how does it occur? What are the factors which cause? Can we save ourselves from earthquakes? What are the precautions we should take? How we can measure? And can the damage must be minimized? So these questions are important. There are certain guidelines which go on and which we have to understand. So when we say earthquake, earthquake is sudden release of energy inside the interior of the earth due to several tectonic activity which going on. So if I say earthquake, so shaking of the earth in the common layman language, but it is a natural event. And this natural event is caused because of the release of energy. But let me tell you, what we used to say earlier that it is only a man-made event. Oh, sorry, natural event. But what has happened recently, we have seen it is a man-made event also. It has, we are watching that several things are happening around the world. Let me give one example. We must have seen the movie Parmanu. That movie. And if we see when we did that explosion, nuclear explosion, so what happened? The earth has shaken. There was a massive earthquake which developed. So that means man-made causes are really dangerous for the earth. And they are leading to the change inside the interior of the earth. Because we know that earth is just moving. This surface or the crust of the earth is moving on, you say, plates. It is a like tectonic plate which is moving. So what will happen if we just continue the way we are damaging our environment and our nature? This might lead to catastrophic events. We must have seen the way we have done the developmental projects which are going on in different parts or different places, and Kedarnath Trasdi, which happened because artificial man-made lake that was there, we just brought such type of things, catastrophe. So that means we need to understand that earthquake is one of the natural phenomena, but it was earlier. Now it is not only it is natural, it is man-made also. So we will see how it has changed and what are the things. So why does earth shake? As I said that there are places or plate tectonics. So these plates inside the interior of the earth, they move past, slip past each other. Because when they slip past each other, there is a movement and this releases the energy. There is a tension. For example, there is a friction and these two plates are colliding. So what will happen? Sudden release of energy, it just rises and it will create the problem. It will create the waves, massive waves will be created. Though we are not able to, some earthquake we are not able to feel. But there are other earthquakes which we are able to feel also, we able to know also, and they have caused the destruction. If you remember, 26 January 2001, the Bhuj earthquake. That was a massive earthquake which led to the demolition of entire Bhuj in Gujarat. So why happened this? Because there was a focus deep down inside the interior of the earth. There were plates, Arabian plate, which was just moving past, and because of that, this earthquake was caused. So these plates create tension, and these tensions, when is released, so energy is released, and this energy travels around the earth in a circular form. We must have seen. If you have not done experiment, just do one experiment. Go to some pond or even at your home. You take a tub, fill it with water, complete, and take some small coin also or anything, and you just drop it in it. You will see that there are waves, ripples which are generated. In this way, the waves have been generated. We are able to see how these waves can travel and cause destruction. That is one thing which we must understand. And this happens because of the release of energy, which we are able to see. And this energy which is released, it is massive in size. It will create a greater influence on the surface of the earth. If we see the experiment I told, initially you will see that those waves are smaller, but as the waves are passing by this surf, what will happen? We have larger waves, they are tumbling on and their size increases. In this way we can say there are several types of waves which can be generated because of these earthquakes, and they can bring changes in the nature, and this can create havoc on the earth's surface, on the human life, cause loss of property and a human life also. So this may happen.
Yeah, as you mentioned about how waves can create a huge impact when it comes to any sort of natural calamity and particularly earthquakes. So is there a specific wave that we could name that is being generated during an earthquake?
Yes, definitely. We are going to see. So here we will see. So this is a wave in which they travel, and if we are able to see body waves, P wave, S wave, these are body waves. We can categorically tell them that there are two types of waves, body waves and surface waves, though their names may vary. So body waves, they are generated because they are inside the interior of the earth. They move from the focus to the different areas on the earth, inside the interior of the earth. But when these waves reached on the surface of the earth, these are known as surface waves. And as you are able to say that P wave and S wave are body waves, whereas surface waves, if we talk about, these are S wave, or we can L wave. These L waves can also be called relay waves, love waves. These are very disastrous. If you see their amplitude, their height, you will be able to measure it, that these are really massive in size and they can cause a great damage to the earth's surface. So let us see how these waves just work. So if we say body waves, they move faster. How can we differentiate P waves and S wave? So they move faster, P waves. They are first to arrive at the surface, and remember, these waves we cannot just feel it. Human being cannot, because these are less than 20 decibel. We cannot hear. Only bats, only like birds, ants, dogs, they can sense it. So these are the first symptoms. Whenever an earthquake comes, they are the first to realize that what is going to happen. So these are some natural things which we can just look after. For example, in night, if you are just sleeping and suddenly dogs start barking, or there is a noise regarding the birds, so these are symbols that an earthquake is about to come. Maybe it is 90% correct, not always correct, but maximum time this is correct when we feel the earthquake. So these P waves are first to arrive, and these are like similar to sound wave. As I told you that this topic and these waves are similar to like physics. In physics we have done. So in the same way it also has amplitude. Okay, so these travel through liquid, solid and gases. Remember, this is important. This is important for P waves because they can travel through any medium, and that's why they can reach on the surface of the earth at a faster pace, because their amplitude is small and they can travel in a sequence. So what happens? These are the first wave to reach on the surface of the earth, whereas when we talk about the secondary waves, they are the second one, not the third, they are the second one. When these comes on the surface, sometime they can travel only through solid material, and that is the important thing. That means through liquid or gases they cannot travel, and these are the waves which have provided us the clue that what is lying inside the interior of the earth, how we can come to know that what is going on inside the interior of the earth. That is the important thing, because these P wave and S wave create shadow zones inside across the earth. So we will see this concept later on, but first let us look at these body waves, how they travel. So now coming to L wave, the most disastrous one. So they are last to report on the seismograph. Now what is seismograph? When we say seismograph, it is an instrument which records the earthquake waves, P, S and L wave, all the three types of waves, these are recorded. Now what happens, you must have seen, if you go for the ECG to a doctor, so what happens, heartbeat. So it is like a heartbeat, the same way which you just saw before 2 slides. So here, if you see, it doesn't look like a heartbeat is going on up and down.
Well, so, as we all have heard and we understand that ECG line shouldn't be straight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could surface waves be straight?
Yes, P waves are almost like straighter, but here if earthquake waves are straighter, that is a lifeline to human being. It is saving, not like ECG where if it is a straight line we can just not be surviving. So here P waves are better rather than we have too many of lines. There is a contrast from the real life and these body waves. So let us see. So these waves are more destructive because of their amplitude and they cause displacement of rock. Yes, we will see that how they just move. Roads have developed cracks. These buildings collapse. So which may lead to collapse of a structure and destruction. They cause the massive destruction on the earth. So L waves are the most destructive one which we must understand. And when we have to see or understand how these waves may be dangerous, which wave is dangerous or what type of earthquake, how we just measure them, there are several different methods to measure them. So first we need to understand how these waves are being created. You see, if you see this picture or this animation, you will be able to see that P waves simply, the black particle which is lying there, they just take it and just come back. So back and forth movement is just going on, and because of this their amplitude is smaller and they travel at a faster pace. So here the P wave propagation, it is easily we can understand that it leads to stretching and squeezing of the material, not just destruction. So P waves generation we have seen here. Now we will see how S waves are created. So see here, these waves vibrate perpendicular in the direction, and this perpendicular motion will lead to some destruction. It is a cause of worry, and they create troughs and crests. So upper part is known as the crest, whereas the lower part is known as trough. So they pass and they create destruction. So
yes, sir. Which of them is more destructive, the primary or the secondary waves?
Secondary waves, or we can say the surface waves, are the most destructive one. Even primary and secondary, because secondary one is just reaching on the surface, but they do not reach and they do not create that havoc. The havoc is created when they reach the L wave which reach on the surface. So they will cause the destruction. The source of destruction is L wave or R wave. They are also known as R wave, relay wave. So that is the source of destruction which we see.
And sir, pertaining to the same context we discussed about body waves, I also want to know like what kind of questions appear in the examination of students. Is it a direct question like talk or discuss about the different kind of body waves associated with earthquake?
Probably they will have a picture based question might come for them if we go through this P wave diagram. If we see, yeah, so this diagram might come to them, and after on the basis of this diagram the questions might be asked. So this is a source based question which is given here, and such type of in these questions, for example, which wave is the most destructive, which wave is the first to come, and why they are most destructive, what will happen if they do not reach on the surface of the earth, and what if they are there is no gap between P wave and S wave, then what will happen? So such type of questions might be asked where they have to apply. So such type of questions, source based question, they are also called application based questions. So which is the focus of new education policy where we are just focusing right now. So new education policy also focuses on this.
So we require a clear understanding, right?
Absolutely.
Diagrammatic representation instead of just cramming the concept of waves.
Absolutely. You need not to cram. Geography is one subject where I feel if you know about the diagrams, you know how to make the diagrams, you are able to explain each and everything, because geography is one subject which deals with spatial and time concept. So what happens is space, that means visual things. Visualization is the most important. If you are able to visualize the things and you are just replicate those things or make the diagrams, you will be able to answer most of the questions which are being asked by the examiners.
And I do believe that it's quite interesting for our viewers to understand, see, and get to know more about this, whether or not you are a student of geography, because I am really enjoying the session. So as you mentioned about the shadow zones.
Yeah.
So is it an important concept?
Absolutely important concept. We must understand that without knowing about the shadow zones, we cannot understand the entire earthquake concept. How does it come, what happens, where it will reach, where it will not reach. And this prediction of the earth, for example, the source, remember, this is a sudden event and we cannot do anything. That is the first thing we need to understand. We have to just understand that we can take precautionary measures only to survive such type of earthquake. Now what happens, these are so deep down and travel so fast that we do not have the mechanism. Within minutes this happens. And what happens when things are happening within minutes, you cannot take the decision. So what happens in such areas, for example, if we talk about the Japan experiences every day almost 5 to 10 earthquakes.
Yeah.
Every day 5 to 10 earthquakes, smaller earthquake comes. So what has happened, they have developed their technology in such a way, or the houses are made in such a way that they have these earthquake proof houses.
Yeah.
So such type of need we are also seeing that presently even DMRC or this developmental plan, they have also advised that we need to just generate, or the new buildings which are just coming up, they have the earthquake proof infrastructure.
Yes.
So definitely this is happening. And as we know that Delhi is located on a geosyncline, once upon a time it was a Tethys Sea here. So this geosyncline, it is very unstable landmass. If we see the map of India, so there are different zones which have been shown, through which we come to know that what are the chances of an earthquake coming and what will be its magnitude. So we will come to know that we have to focus on such type of infrastructure in Delhi even more. So these things we need to understand.
Is it an earthquake prone zone?
Yes, Delhi is an earthquake prone.
All right, we need to be careful.
So shadow zones. What are shadow zones? When we say shadow zones, basically what happens, as I told you, that P waves can travel through all the mediums. They can travel through solid, liquid and gaseous stages. But when I say S wave, these can travel only through, you can say, solid or liquid solid stage. So what will happen? Liquid and gaseous stages, they will not be able to travel. And when they are not able to travel, so they will not pass. We will not be able to receive these waves somewhere in the interior of the earth, because these waves travel in all direction everywhere, and because of which we need to understand, or we come to know, that what is the inside interior of the earth, how it is made of. It is a solid, liquid or semi-liquid, only then we come to know.
How do we identify shadow zones? Because they are the places where waves are not being recorded.
Absolutely, absolutely. We will see this picture here. P wave shadow zone and S wave shadow zone has been shown. If you see here P wave shadow zone, so one place where on the top we are able to see where P wave shadow zone is, P wave is written. So this P wave, where earthquake comes, this is the main focus from where the earthquake is coming, and waves are traveling in every part. Now what happens? Again we are using science concept. In science we have read about refraction. So what happened? when from lighter medium to denser medium anything enters, it will refract, change its path, and from denser to lighter, once again it will change path. So what happens here also, because if we see that from 105 degree from the source, the focus of the earth, where epicenter was there, from that area to 105 degree in both hemisphere, we will be able to receive these P waves. But there is an area from 105 to 145 degree. We are not able to receive these P waves. And why does this happen? Not because the earth is in some other state, because P waves can travel in every, you can say every path or every medium. So what happens? Because they can travel in every medium, so we need to understand that there might be change in the medium. Only because of that refraction will take place. So they will just deflect from their path. So this deflection occurs because of which these are not received in these two places. So we are able to see that from 105 to 145 we do not receive any P wave, and this is a shadow zone. Whereas when we see another diagram which is downside, the second diagram, here this is a S wave shadow zone, and we have read this S wave cannot travel in liquid and gaseous stage. So what happens here? Because of this we are able to see that P waves, S wave can travel only till 105 both sides, and rest 105 to 105 on the other, there is no S wave received. And because of that we can conclude that interior of the earth or the outer core of the earth is in liquid stage.
All right. So that brings us to the entire conclusion. So I think
When you
that kind
said-
of question could be there in the examination.
Absolutely, absolutely. This diagram, shadow zone question, is mostly asked by the teachers, because this is one of the entire and a deep concept, deep rooted concept, which you need to understand what are the different sources, how we come to know about the interior of the earth.
All right, so as we are discussing about earthquakes, so I really want to know, like, are there different kinds of earthquakes, or do we only denote them in terms of the magnitude or the intensity that they come up with?
There are different types of earthquakes also, but their magnitude, when we just talk about their magnitude, it can be measured. Magnitude can be measured. So how we can measure these magnitude, we will see. But first, types of earthquake, one is the tectonic earthquake. These are the natural earthquake which we see that inside the interior, when I was saying that there are two plates, when there is a tension in between these two plates, and these plates release energy. So because of the movement of these plates, this tectonic earthquake comes. Whereas when we talk about the volcanic earthquake, because volcanoes, they bring magma, there is a pressure inside, gas is released, and sometimes like a Stromboli volcano, it is so violent volcano that when it comes, its sound can be heard at a different place or far off place. So these volcanoes, when they erupt, they just cause the earthquake also. So volcanic and tectonic, these are two earthquakes which we can say these are natural.
And what do you think, which one would lead to more destruction for the public life?
For the public life, if I have to say, the most destructive one will be that plate tectonic earthquake. That is the most destructive one, because volcanic earthquake, they have limited what you call their influence on the earth, sphere of impact. But what happens? Rather than earthquake will have destruction, volcanoes which bring with them magma, that will have more destruction. That is the most important thing which we need to understand. So volcanic earthquake have double impact, whereas tectonic earthquake have only one impact. That will be the causing destruction, but it will have double destruction.
All right. So as we discussed previously, how do we measure the intensity of an earthquake? So
we will come first, there is the third type of earthquake which we call the collapse earthquakes. Now this is a man-made earthquake. When we say, how these collapse earthquake when the mines or tunnels which we make inside the interior of the earth because of shaft mining, like we have seen a movie long back when I was a child. I saw a movie called Kala Patthar of Amitabh Bachchan. So what happened, this tunnel was there where they were stuck. So these tunnels or present generation, they are just playing the games like Subway Surfers. Or so these tunnels may succumb, these mines will collapse, the roof will just collapse down, and because these mines are very large, on a large scale they have been dug out, so what will happen? They will cause collapse earthquake. Though their sphere of impact is limited, but definitely they will have influence. Whereas when we say explosion earthquake, this example I have already given, that when we have nuclear bomb explosion like Parmanu movie we have seen, and what happened there, we were able to understand how the explosion occurs and because of which the earthquakes are caused. So the fifth one, there is another word, that is the reservoir induced earthquake. This is a recent phenomena. What has happened after 1950s, if I say in India, we have been able to make several large dams, and these large dams make a huge reservoir of water. Now what happens, inside the plate, inside the interior, there is no pressure on it, and what happens when these reservoirs are made, so this water creates a pressure
on the plates,
on those plates which are lying beneath the earth's surface, and what will happen, this will generate tension. And this tension, when it is released, this will cause earthquake. Nagarjun Sagar Dam, like. So it has been thought that the South India, which is one of the safest landmass on earth's surface, where earthquake cannot come, the earthquake has come. So it happened because of the reservoir induced earthquakes which we have seen latest.
All right. So, do we have only 5 or are there
these
other
5?
ways?
These are the five ones.
All right. So, I have a question between explosion earthquake and volcanic earthquake. So, explosion, as you mentioned, it comes from some kind of atomic bombs or the nuclear bomb. So, is it a man-made thing?
Yeah.
Particularly the explosion ones.
Absolutely. Explosion, that means explosive, and explosive arts are definitely, these are made by human beings, not by the nature. So these explosions like nuclear bomb, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, that happened explosion. Or we do these nuclear tests, which are happening in different parts. So what happens, such type of earthquake occurs, explosion, especially if I say these earthquakes are caused because of this only, explosion, nuclear explosion.
All right. So during nuclear explosion, because the pictures that we saw for volcanic eruptions and the explosion ones, they resemble each other. Okay. But one is completely, I think, natural in nature, and the another one is somehow man-made.
Man-made. So the first two were natural.
All right.
The first two, when I say tectonic
and volcanic.
And when I say about these three later on, reservoir induced or collapse or explosive. So these are man-made earthquakes which have been caused, and as you know that this developmental activities which we are carrying out, in long run they have repercussions for everyone. We have seen that. So that means that's why probably even now this government has started working on some sustainable development, and we are working very hard on to achieve the targets. So that we have such a government which is the responsible and which is working for the people.
All right. So as we proceed ahead, we have often read the newspaper headlines that says so and so place, for example, this and this part of the country or the world has received an earthquake of 4.5 Richter magnitude. So what does it actually mean, like the magnitude or the intensity through which the earthquake comes, and how do we measure it? What are the different scales or any equipment particularly meant to measure it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Normally, just as I said, that seismograph is one equipment through which we just record the earthquake waves. Now what happens, there are different scales which have been devised by the people. So there are two, we can say, scale. One is magnitude, another is intensity. So we can measure earthquake in two. That is, one is magnitude, another is intensity. When we talk about the magnitude, that means it talks about the energy released during quake. During earthquake, how much energy has been released, and we just record it on Richter scale. Richter scale is one of the most popular scale which we use, and it just ranges that release of energy between 0 to 10. Whereas we have another scale which is intensity. That means the damage which has been caused because of the earthquake. To measure that, we have the intensity, and this is known as Mercalli scale. Mercalli scale measures from 1 to 12. So what happens, we are able to measure, and mostly we say on Richter scale, the earthquake measured approximately say 5.6, 7.1 or 8.1. So this is Richter scale through which we talk about, that is magnitude. Only we talk in terms of energy, we do not talk in terms of the damage. Whereas the Mercalli scale talks about the damage which has been caused because of this earthquake. So it measures, like if I say, on Richter scale, the magnitude of the Bhuj earthquake was 8.1 or 7.6 probably. So on Mercalli scale, definitely it will be more than 8. Because the complete destruction of the structure was there. So we can see this. So here is a Richter magnitude and earthquake effects. If we see, like 0 to 2, if there is a magnitude of earthquake, not felt by the people, like dogs, and they just sense it. So 2 to 3 felt little by the people, whereas 3 to 4 ceiling lights swing a little bit. 4 to 5 walls may develop the cracks. 5 to 6 magnitude if the earthquake is having. So what will happen? Furniture moves. We see that there is a movement and displacement. 6 to 7 some buildings collapse, but 7 to 8 many buildings destroyed, and 8 and up total destruction, nothing remains. That means it flattens the entire earth surface. So this is the Richter magnitude if we talk about. Whereas if we say the magnitude, if here in terms of what will happen to these places, so magnitude of the 5 or 6, 7, complete destruction after 8 will happen. So this is the thing which we can do. Now, if we talk about these earthquakes, can we save ourselves from these earthquakes?
Whatever little that we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So when earthquake comes, we need to understand we cannot save. You cannot stop earthquake.
Yes.
That is a fact we need to understand. So what we need to do, now what we can do? If we cannot stop the earthquake, then definitely we need to do something.
About ourselves.
About ourselves, how to save people. So one is quick response system, where we have, and people are informed about it immediately. Nowadays, we are able, because people have the reach to the phone and news and everything, where they are easily able to understand. But what happens? The time span is very low. And that's why probably more people need to be aware that they have to prepare their buildings in such a way which have such type of earthquake prone zones who are living in, like in Himalayas people are living. So the buildings must be made in such a way which develop the technology, or the buildings which structures have this earthquake proof things. So only then it is possible we will be able to save the life of the people here.
All right. So we are left with the last concept that talks about the structure of the earth, because I do believe that it is very important to understand the structure of the earth.
Yeah, definitely.
Before we proceed towards the earthquakes or other kind of catastrophic situations that happen here.
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely. If I say that structure of the earth must be known. Now, if you remember, at the beginning of the chapter, what we discussed, how we come to know about the interior of the earth. And here, finally, we are coming to the interior of the earth, how we will come to know what are different layers which have been formed, how this stratification has occurred, and these layers were created. So, the structure of the earth, if we say that the area where we live, the solid part, which is brittle in nature, that is called the crust, where oceans are there, mountains, plains, plateaus, and we make our building, we live. That portion of the earth is known as crust. Beneath crust, we have mantle. Now, when we talk about the mantle, mantle is further divided into two parts. And this mantle, outer mantle and inner mantle is there. And when we say beyond that we have core, and core is further divided into two, the outer core and the inner core. So these are different layers on the earth's surface. For example, if we take onion and we just peel off, so inside the interior what solid part remains, that is called the core, inner core. And as we move away from the core, probably the type of material will also change. So this structure of the earth can be known. Okay. So the first one is the crust, the top layer, which I just discussed. And what happens? This top layer, which is very small, their depth very small, I can say from 30 to 90 kilometer. Maximum beneath the mountains, it is 90 kilometer. For example, Himalayas, beneath Himalayas, it is 90 kilometer depth. Otherwise, in ocean, it is only 5 kilometer depth. So this crust is very brittle in nature, and it is very small in comparison to the interior other layers of the earth. For example, if I say the mantle portion of the earth itself is 2900 kilometer deep, so massive deep. And then, as we know, the core and rest of the remaining is core. So core has a wider part, and as we move inside the interior of the earth, we will be able to see that density increases, pressure increases, volume increases, and temperature increases. So because of this, the nature of the material also changes as we move deep down inside the interior of the earth. So this happens. Okay.
So we still have around 8 minutes left in the conversation. So what are we going to discuss next here?
So we are going to discuss about the core. So the core, if we say outer core is in liquid format or liquid state, while the inner core is in solid state. Now, because of this, when we were just doing shadow zones, we saw that only in the outer core, which is in liquid, that's why S-wave were not able to travel. And these were not received on the different path of the earth, different parts of the earth. So from here only we are able to derive the indirect information. Initially we said that we have not been able to go beyond 12 kilometers.
Yeah.
So that means for where human being has reached, and till 12 we have just drilling projects. We have not reached, but drilling projects are there. But beyond that, we are not able to know about the interior of the earth, and that we have come to know only with the help of these indirect sources. And earthquake is one such indirect source which tells about the interior of the earth. And when I say these like crust, mantle, and core, they are known by different names. So like the type of material which is found on the basis of that crust is known as sial, S-I-A-L. Sial means hota hai silica plus aluminium. So this is the two minerals. For example, if we say someone asks which is the most abundant mineral found on the earth's surface, it is silica, which is the most abundant mineral which is found on earth's surface. So silica plus aluminium it is Sial, which is called CRUST. When we come to the next one, that is mantle. So this is SIMA, S-I-M-A. So silica and magnesium, again magnesium. Then we come to the core, and it is called Nephe. And if you are able to see, it is written nickel plus ferrous. Fe means ferrous, iron. That means iron. So that means it will be in very solid form inside the inner core Nephe, and that's why it has magnetic properties. Earth is a magnet, a big magnet. That's why we have North Pole and South Pole. So in the same manner, when we move inside the interior of the earth, the type of material which is found defines what we call this layer. And in the same manner, the crust, mantle and core, or Sial, Sima and Nephe are called.
And it's also a great way to learn about their composition, like Sial, Sima and Nephe.
So definitely it is a mnemonics which we can develop, and we can easily understand how they have been formed, what is the structure, how we can just understand about them. So this is a entire concept which we were discussing. There is one more concept which is about the volcanoes, because time and again we have discussed about what are volcanoes, how they are formed, what will be their effect on it. So these things happen. Now if we talk about the volcanoes, we can take up, because a time constraint is there probably.
Yes sir, because we are left by the last 3 minutes in the conversation. I request you to be very precise.
So volcanoes also need to be understand. We need to understand that these volcanoes come from the deep interior, and we can say not very deep. Even these volcanoes have maximum of 200 kilometer depth, whereas Earth's interior is more than 200. That means 6,370 kilometer. So we need to understand that these volcanoes are important. When we say that nature acts simultaneously, it is destructive and creative. So volcanoes are one such example which are both creative and destructive.
So apart from earthquakes and volcanoes, what all other forms of calamities do happen, like avalanches,
landslides? So earthquake are one such cause which creates tsunami.
Yeah.
We remember, if I am correct, 26th of December 2004. One of the greatest calamity, or you can say the biggest calamity, happened in the Indian Ocean. And what happened? It was a tsunami in which most part of the coastal areas and entire almost Sri Lanka was wiped out. Maldives and India helped these countries during this calamity. And at that time, if I remember, India was playing its cricket match in Bangladesh. So that means these calamities are really dangerous, and we cannot stop them. We can only have precaution. That's most important thing. We have to take precaution.
So sir, having mentioned about precautions in the last 1 minute, I'll request you to please give a message to all our viewers. Like whenever we talk about natural calamities, you just explained in the beginning that earthquake, it's not only artificial at times, or it's not natural form, but it does happen due to man-made activities. So as school students, what minimum or the least that our students could do for the area of prevention?
Okay, so we have seen that nowadays schools are also made, they have earthquake proof buildings also. But what happens, every year we conduct earthquake activity in the schools, where they are given this message. There is a mock drill which is being carried out, and I will suggest such type of drills like fire hazards or earthquake hazard drills must be conducted in a school at least once in a month, so that they are aware, and this will create an awareness among the people, and it will be helpful in saving life and property, definitely.
Of course, that was a beautiful message summing up the entire conversation for all our viewers. Thank you so much, sir, for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for just inviting me. Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Thank you. It's our honor to have our experts in the conversation with us and guiding our path through the different areas that are associated with the interior of the earth, whether it's the concept related to the core, mantle and the crust, or the different kinds of earthquakes, how do we measure them, the different kinds of scales that are associated with them, and a lot of more information for all our viewers. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you to all the viewers who have connected with NCERT for this particular session. You don't have to go anywhere because upcoming is our session of mathematics for class 12 students, where we are going to discuss about the application of integrals. So stay connected with NCERT and keep watching PM eVidya channels. Namaskar.